So, I just had a couple of anecdotes that I wanted to talk about. Story number one. I was coming home from getting some McDonald's. I went to McDonald's. I was like, I'm going to get McDonald's. So I got up. I went to go get McDonald's. I come home. I'm going up to my door. My apartment's one of those apartments where, like, there's the inner hallway and the apartment doors go off to either side. I've lived in an apartment before. I've lived in multiple apartments before where it was like your door was straight the fuck outside. It's not one of those. It's like, you know, a hotel. And I see my neighbor's door, the girl that lives across from me, her keys are in the door. And I'm like, door's closed, and her keys are just in the door. And I'm like, you know, because I'm like, you know, that's just kind of funny. And I was like, I want to be the one to tell her so bad. So, I knock on her door, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting. And I'm like, and I knock on the door again, a little bit louder, like, what the fuck? And no answer. And I'm like, bitch, I know you're home. You know what I mean? Like, your keys are in the door. I know you're home. Like, you ain't going anywhere, leaving your keys in the door. Like, alright, whatever. And so I was just like, alright, well, she'll figure it out. And I go to my apartment. I come in, I eat, and I do my thing. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, I forgot a part. As I was going into my door, I looked back and I could see that she was standing there looking at other people at me. And I'm like, whatever. So I'm sitting in here and I'm eating and I'm watching, you know, the news. That's why I don't eat and watch the news. And I'm thinking. And I'm like, like, how sad would that be if she looked out and saw some white guy, and either because I was white or because I was a guy, was afraid that I wanted to do something untoward. And all I wanted to do was go, you left your keys in the door. That was it. I was looking to help her out. You know, at some point you're going to be like, shit, where's my keys? They're there. You know, whatever goofy thing I would wound up saying at the time. But that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure she knew. I didn't want somebody to come by and either A, see her keys and be like, yoink, and then go find her car and go joyride, and then she's out of fucking car. I didn't want that to happen. And I also didn't want somebody to see her keys in the door and go, well, that door looks unlocked, and then do a little home invasion. Yeah, I'm like, you know, all the horror scenarios are playing through my mind. And I'm like, I don't want either of those to happen. And I'm like, that would be so fucking sad if something terrible happened. Because she was afraid to open the door for me. Like, I'm just like, oh, that's terribly fucking sad. So, that was my first story. She did get her keys. I imagine at some point she wound up looking for her keys and went, shit, where are my keys? And then probably thought, oh, that guy was knocking on my door. And then opened the door, there were her keys. She got her keys. Because I could hear her door open. She got her keys. Like, it's weird. Like, if somebody was passing by, they could probably hear me talking right now, but I'm not entirely sure how much they could make out. But, like, I can definitely hear people in the hallways and shit like that. But, yeah, I can't hear into her apartment, though. But if I was in the hallway and if she's watching TV, I can hear that she's watching TV. So, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I just thought, you know, I just thought that was sad. Because I was like, man, I hope that's not, you know, because that'd just fucking be a thing. And that would just be sad. But, whatever. So there's my first story.
The streets are extended gutters, and the gutters are full of blood. And when the drains finally scab over, all the vermin will drown. The accumulated filth of all their sex and murder will foam up around their waists. And all the whores and politicians will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper,
"Get up on it, you fucking bitch!"
So as you all know, I'm into this shit. I keep up on the news, I watch all of it, and I try and soak in as much as humanly possible, and I theorize and debate with people constantly about what's going on. And all the guys at work, they know I'm into this shit too. And I work with a lot of really good guys. I would say that they're all really good guys. To varying degrees. But like some of the guys, obviously, I'm like closer with than others, right? Some guys I like more than others, and some guys I get along with more than others. And some guys I've hung out with outside of work before. And one of the guys that I've hung out with outside of work before, he's a black guy, because now that matters. And you know, I talk with him a lot about shit that's going on. Did you hear what's fucking happening? That shit's crazy, you know. It's more like that than anything else. And I told him the story that I just finished telling you guys about my neighbor in the Keys. And I told him about my hypothesis that, you know, perhaps it was because of one thing or another. And he was like, yeah, that's fucking crazy, man. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, you know, our boss, he's like, well, you know, she have kids. And I'm like, not that I know of. And he's like, well, I always tell my kids, you know, I don't give a shit who it is. Fucking don't answer the door for anybody except for, like, these people, you know. And I'm like, well, yeah, but her keys were in the door. She was home. Like, even if it was a kid, she was home. So it's kind of a moot point, but, you know, whatever. And we were laughing about that. And later on, like, not you know, hours later, but, you know, a little while later, he rolled up to me on the tow motor and he's like, hey, man, he's like, you know, shit's fucking crazy right now. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you ever need me over there, man, you let me know. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, I live in a really good neighborhood. You know, I'm in an apartment building. Most of the people in my building are older. Like, a lot of them are, like, you know, middle-aged people with kids, and they're, like, 30s, 40s, shit like that. I'm like, I'm not really worried. You know, in my building, at least, I'm not worried. And, honestly, like, the neighborhood around my place, it's fucking suburbs, man. It is absolutely... There's one difference between the neighborhood I live in now and the neighborhood I've lived in my whole life up until I moved up here. And the only difference is, back home, more white people than black people. Here, more black people than white people. It's the only difference. Like, it's literally the only fucking difference. So, yeah, like, I'm not terribly concerned. There's a whole lot of people wanting to carve out their fucking space in life and prosper in the best way they can and raise their kids and fucking shit like that. Like, it's... So I'm not terribly worried. Like, it doesn't bother me at all, really. But, you know, he was concerned for me, and I'm like, well, that's cool, man, you know. And that made me just kind of feel, you know, hope. Just hope for humankind. Because I'm, you know, like, it's always been my thing. Like, racism is going to die out, inevitably. Like, all of the isms are going to inevitably die out. Because sooner or later, everybody's going to kind of know somebody else of every different flavor of the melting pot, right? Like, I know an Iraqi dude. He's American, he was born here, he's a citizen, but he's, you know, he's a first generation American, like, you know what I mean? Like, his parents were both Iraqi, and he lived most of his life in Iraq. And one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. Just a real fucking stand-up dude. And I watched him go through a lot of shit. And I'm like, it's just terrible what people do for no reason other than he's a first generation Iraqi. He's got an accent and he doesn't know English terribly well. So why you gotta tell the guy racial slurs and send him out there in the world to go and fucking say them to people? Like, you know what I mean? And that was some shit that I'm like, oh, dude. I'm like, you don't want to say that, man. You know what I mean? And he's like, why? And I told him why, and he's like, oh, why would he do that to me? And I'm like, you can't always trust everybody, man. I don't know. I'm like, the world's a scary place. Some people. And, you know, he was generally saddened by that, because he's like, oh, I thought that guy was my friend. And I'm like, so, yeah, you know, like, but that kind of shit was the rare incident, not the norm. For the most part, everybody was cool with him. I've worked with a whole lot of different people from a whole lot of different places, and they've all been fucking cool. Right? So it demystifies the aura of all these type of people are bad. Because you meet one person that's not, and you go, well, perhaps that's wrong then. And sooner or later the shit dies out. You integrate. And everybody kind of gets along, because not everybody's a fucking prick. That's the harshest reality that people can face right now. Not everybody is a prick. So, yeah, fuck. It was done, man. It was so well on its way to being done. We didn't need to go through another fucking civil rights movement. But ultimately, I don't even really think that we're in a civil rights movement. I think that we're combating against the supremacy movement, but that's just a quick way for me to get fucking in trouble. So, maybe I'll talk about that on BitChute. Shit. It is so fun when you figure out how to play the game. It really is true what Rick Sanchez said. If you're smart, then the world is the universe is your oyster. You just gotta know how to play the game.